Hi there. Welcome to the 6th unit of study, Communicating Effectively and Assertively. This unit outlines models of communication that have been found to be very effective in developing relationships that empower, build self-esteem, and foster assertive communication. Using the skills of active and reflective listening, asking powerful questions, and summarizing to gain clarity and understanding, the coach establishes a working relationship based on mutual regard and acceptance, assisting the client to move beyond their limiting beliefs to achieve their goals. This is a very simplistic model of how we communicate interpersonally. It was developed by David Berlow in 1960 as one of the first attempts to deconstruct what happens when one person speaks to another. It describes what happens when a source sends a message via a channel to a receiver. According to this model, the source's communication skills, attitudes, knowledge, social system, and culture influence the message, which is about the content and structure of the communication. As we've learned in an earlier unit, spoken communication is usually more effective than written, since we can see the person as well as hear their intonation and emphasis. We can also use our other sensory channels of touch, taste, and smell, as appropriate, to understand what they're saying. The receiver then decodes the message according to their communication skills, attitudes, knowledge, social system, and culture. And, of course, audience characteristics like age, gender, prior knowledge, etc. must be taken into account. All this is happening within a split second of a person opening their mouth to speak. Of course, we now know there's much more involved in communication, including what Berlow forgot to include. That is, a feedback loop, so that the receiver can respond, and we can gauge if they're accurately receiving our communication. Now let's look at why we communicate with other people. What's the intention? We may be communicating for one or more reasons: to inform the receiver, to enlist his or her support, to influence or convince the person in a certain way, to gain commitment, and or to sell a message to the receiver. Depending on our reason for communicating, we'll frame our message differently. For example, if we're seeking information, we'll simply ask the other person in a direct way. If we're trying to convince them to buy our services, we'll point out the benefits of how we can make their life easier or solve their problem, then try to convince them to believe us. Or, if we're trying to encourage them to take a particular course of action, we may use examples of how others have succeeded to show them that this is possible. In addition, our method of communication will change depending on the reason for it and what we're trying to achieve. It's best to communicate verbally when it's important to see the other person's reaction to our message, such as in face-to-face interviews, presentations, workshops, and training programs. We can see their nonverbal language, such as posture, gestures, facial expression, and skin color. Written communication is best when you want to have a permanent record that the message has been delivered, that is, received, such as via a memo, email, proposal, or business letter. However, knowing that the message has been received does not necessarily guarantee that it's been understood. Obviously, the best way to ensure that your message has been received and understood is to communicate face-to-face. In this way, you can build rapport, actively listen to what the other person is saying, reflect on what you're hearing, ask questions for clarification, as well as powerful questions, and summarize to make sure you're on the right track. These are the skills that coaches use to develop better and deeper communication with clients. Let's look at each of them in turn. Building rapport is about being yourself, being at ease, having a winning smile, being open and confident, starting with the small talk, remaining positive, being courteous and attentive, and affirming the client's strengths. This gets you off to a great start with the client. If troubles arise in your communication during your coaching sessions, you need to go back to these steps to rebuild the rapport. Active listening is about listening to accurately hear what the other person is saying, repeating that back to the client and checking to see if it is accurate. Asking questions for clarification. Asking powerful questions to go deeper. Not interrupting. Not putting in your own thoughts, ideas, or suggestions, and remaining present with the client. There's no doubt that reflective listening is the key to coaching. As a coach, you need to listen carefully to your clients. They'll tell you what's worked and what hasn't, what moved them forward, and what held them back. As you proceed through the coaching session, you will need to vary the level of reflection, because keeping reflections at the surface level may lead to the feeling that the interaction is moving in circles. Reflections of effect, especially those that are unstated but likely, can be powerful motivators. If you're right, the emotional intensity of the session deepens. The goal of coaching is to create forward momentum, and then to harness that momentum to create change. Reflective listening keeps that momentum moving forward. As you begin the coaching session and throughout, the coach asks questions to clarify their understanding of the client's situation and needs. They can ask open or closed questions. Open questions keep the conversation going. Questions like, if you could have anything you wanted in life, what would that be? Closed questions can shut the conversation down. They usually require a 1 or 2 word answer. When did it happen? Or, how long has this been going on? There's a place for asking closed questions to get the details surrounding the problem or situation. However, in general, try not to interrupt the flow of conversation. Ask questions at an opportune time when the client has paused for breath. In addition to asking open and closed questions, you'll find that asking powerful questions helps the conversation to go to a deeper level. Powerful questions help people think for themselves. All powerful questions come from a place of genuine curiosity. They're direct, simple, and usually open-ended, generate creative thinking and surface underlying information, and encourage self-reflection. Here are some examples of powerful questions. What's the most positive future you could possibly imagine? If money and resources were no object, how would you be living your life? What kind of a life would give you the most satisfaction? How would things be for you if you have everything you needed? As part of developing your coaching toolkit, you'll be asked to develop your own set of powerful questions that you can use and refine to help your clients go deeper and discover their truth. The final micro-coaching skill that you'll use is that of summarizing. Summaries are an effective way to communicate your interest in a client, build rapport, call attention to salient elements of the discussion, and shift attention or direction. You'll summarize at intervals during the coaching session and at the end. Now let's look at a different communication model, an interpersonal model called transactional analysis. In 1969, psychologist Eric Berne published a book called I'm Okay, You're Okay. Berne called his theory transactional analysis, or TA as it's become to be known, because it's a way of analyzing the transactions between individuals to see if they are what Berne called parallel or crossed. The theory is also known as the parent-adult-child model of communication and is based on how we feel about ourselves and how we feel about others. In other words, for myself, okay or not okay, and for you, okay or not okay. If I'm okay and you're okay, the top right position, then we both have high self-esteem and interact very well. If neither of us are okay, the bottom left position, we're in a hopeless position, and the exchange goes nowhere. In between, the person who feels okay is able to dominate the person they deem not okay, and in the reverse, the not okay person becomes the victim. The task for the coach is to get the client into the okay position so they can have healthy relationships and better deal with the world. One way to start doing this is to look at the interactions, or transactions as Byrne called them, between the two people. TA concentrates on people's interactions with each other. As we described earlier, transactions. Transactions are the flow of communication, and more specifically, the unspoken psychological flow of communication that can either run in parallel or be crossed. Parallel transactions are when the sender sends from, as in Figure 1, their parent to child, and the receiver responds from their child to parent. The interaction is fine, and the relationship is preserved and reinforced. Cross transactions are when the sender sends from one state, say adult, and the receiver responds from a different one, say child, as in Figure 2. This typically leads to confrontation, and the relationship may break down. The aim of coaching is to get the two people starting their interaction from the same state, usually the adult state, and responding from that state as well. In this way, the transaction is parallel and successful. The two people understand each other and are said to be on the same wavelength. We all like to be noticed. We all like to be responded to when we speak. How we respond to each other is either positive or negative. Eric Byrne called these responses strokes. Examples of positive strokes are, "You're the most beautiful child in the world. I love you very much. What a good job you've done on cleaning up that mess." Negative strokes are when parents say to their children things like, "You never do anything I tell you. You make me so mad. How many times do I have to tell you to?" By giving others 10 times as many positive as negative strokes, we end up with a bank account of positive credits in relation to that person. That's good for us, but it's also good for them since we promote their self-esteem as well. Every single person needs a healthy self-esteem to function effectively as a human being. This process starts early in life with parents offering their children freedom within limits, which are clear and jointly negotiated, coupled with high aspirations and unconditional positive regard. These are the magic ingredients for positive relationships built on healthy self-esteem, respect for others, and positive self-regard. Research has found that individuals with healthy self-esteem firmly believe in certain values and principles and are ready to defend them, even when experiencing opposition to them, feeling secure enough to modify them in the light of future experience. They're able to act according to what they think to be the best choice, trusting their own judgment, and not feeling guilty when others don't like their choice. And they don't lose time worrying excessively about what happened in the past or about what could happen in the future. They learn from the past and plan for the future, but live intensely in the present. People with a healthy self-esteem are assertive about what they need and how they want to go about getting it. They communicate their needs and wants in a way that gets them where they want to go, but does not cut across the needs of others. There are 3 types of communicators: passive communicators, who do not defend their own personal boundaries and allow aggressive people to abuse or manipulate them through fear. Passive communicators are typically not likely to risk trying to influence anyone else. On the other hand, aggressive people do not respect the personal boundaries of others and are liable to harm others while trying to influence them. Of course, the space in between is where we want our clients to be. Assertive communicators overcome their fear of speaking their mind and try to influence others in a way that respects the personal boundaries of both. They're willing to defend themselves against aggressive people in an assertive way. They express their thoughts and feelings forthrightly, but don't let the conversation spiral into aggression. Here are 2 models of what tends to happen in the passive-aggressive-assertive triangle. In the left-hand model, a typical reaction when things don't go our way is to either run away, that is, be passive and don't do anything, or become aggressive and cause a fight, either verbally or physically. Neither of these reactive behaviors is productive in the long term. What we need to do is remain calm so we can respond rationally in an assertive way. Difficult when you're upset, but well worth training yourself to behave this way whenever possible. The right-hand model explains why you as a coach should not become involved in your client's problems. Initially, you may be seen as the rescuer by your client who's telling you about the persecutor in his or her life, who may be their life partner, boss, ex-friend, etc. However, if you become part of their drama by, in some way, condemning the actions of the persecutor, research has shown that the client may immediately switch allegiance and cast you in the role of persecutor as she defends that person who has now become the victim. It's a delicate balance, and as a coach, you don't want to become involved in this triangle, hence setting yourself up for potential loss of esteem and a damaged coach-client relationship. So, how can you become more assertive? Here are some tried and proven techniques. Broken record. This is where you keep repeating your request in a calm way. Fogging, where you agree with part of what the other person is saying, but not the whole, or you agree in principle with what they're saying. You're not committing yourself, but keeping the conversation open for further discussion. Negative inquiry is when you ask for examples of how the other person found you to be negative. In what circumstances? In what situations? You're asking for specific information that you can consider and learn from if necessary, or correct their perception. Negative assertion is when you agree that you are being negative, with good reason, and continue to make the request and expect it to be acted upon. I statements are when you express your feelings without judgment or blame. You simply state what has happened, how it made you feel, and what you would like to happen instead. Here's a great formula that you can use to express your wishes assertively. When you, and then you describe the behavior, for example, shout at me, I feel angry, sad, annoyed, frustrated, etc., because, for example, you treat me like a child, and what I would like you to do instead is, for example, treat me like an adult. That's all for now. In the next unit, we'll look at how you can prepare for and undertake an initial life coaching session. See you then.